I think I touched on a little bit of a nerve last week when I posted a video over on TikTok and I pissed some people off. The video was only a few seconds long, but it got people rubbed up the wrong way, and all I was doing was talking about a new proposed 45-storey building proposed down in Dublin Docklands. The video itself got over 20,000 views, about 2,000 likes and over 400 comments in all. Here's a quick look at the video so you know what I'm actually talking about. We like this. We want more of this. Dublin City Council, time to move out of the way and allow for progress to actually happen. New 45-storey building planned in Dublin. Just gone in for planning permission now, but hopefully it will get planning permission. There is a rooftop bar planned at the top as well. That would be amazing for Dublin. Who else is with me on this one? So some background into the development itself. It is on North Quay. It has 3 blocks. It sits on 1.1 hectare, and those blocks range from 8 stories up to 45 stories. A planning application was put in there last week by Ronan's company through the Strategic Housing Authority, which is this fast planning application process. And the development includes a total of 1,005 apartments. I'm not using this video to discuss this development or this particular development. All it is a catalyst to open up a conversation, and that conversation is Dublin ready for high-rise? I'm going to focus this video on the pros and cons of building up. A lot of them will actually be just addressing the cons that were raised within the TikTok comments, and hopefully I'll be able to answer some questions that were raised within TikTok. If you are against high-rise development on building up within Dublin, please put your comments in below, but make sure you stick with me and hear me out on what I have to say. So before I actually start, I think it's important to just give a little bit of background on who I am. So I have a degree in property economics. I am a chartered surveyor. I've been working in the real estate industry for over 17 years. And actually last year, I completed a course on urban development through Harvard X. You are welcome to disagree with my views. They are just my views. But I think it's important for you to understand where I'm coming from. But before I forget, make sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Urban development and building up is something I could talk about for hours, but this is a YouTube video and I want to keep it as short as possible. I could probably make a video on each topic I actually discuss within this video, but I want to make it as short as possible. I will only touch on each element and I will leave loads of information out. Let me address some of the comments that were on the TikTok video. A lot of the comments were actually quite positive in terms of high-rise, and some of the comments were quite negative in terms of being anti-high-rise. There was a lot of comments that were personal attacks on me, and so be it. But it definitely did hit a nerve with some people. A common comment that came up quite a lot was that high-rise would destroy Dublin City's Georgian skyline. This is a fair point, but I also have to consider that the Georgian buildings will be protected. Actually, they are protected. And I don't think any high-rise that is planned is going to be near the Georgian quarter. Most of it planned will be down in the Docklands and therefore will not impact the Georgian quarter in terms of skyline. You likely won't actually be able to see most of the high-rise from most parts of the city, and therefore if you are in the Georgian quarter of Dublin City, the likelihood is you're not going to be able to actually see any of the high-rise buildings. And like to actually make the point here, right now I'm in New York City. I am in Manhattan, in East Village, a historical area of New York City known for its low-rise building. I'm actually in the skyscraper capital of the world, and right now I can only see a few from my window. If I look straight out my window, I can only see a 7-story building. Over to the left, there's probably a few 40-story buildings, and to the right, down a few blocks, is the Empire State Building, which is, I think, about 86 stories plus the tower. And if the Empire State Building was only 44 stories, the likelihood is I wouldn't even see it. And I suppose right behind the building that's in front of me, where I look straight out the window, behind that 7-storey block, there is multiple 100-storey buildings, which I can't see any of them. So in terms of actually destroying the skyline within the city, you don't actually see a huge amount of these high-rise developments unless you're actually quite close to them. If you are surrounded by other buildings, you can't see them. Think about it this way: how often do you see the Dublin Spire when you're walking around the city? Fair enough, if you're at a great distance from the city, up the mountains, perhaps you can see it. But if you're walking around the city, there's only a handful of streets that you can actually see the spire from, because other buildings block out that view. Protecting our old buildings is very important, and it is an important task for planners and city council. However, protection of our past shouldn't actually hinder our future. And I'll say it again: protection of our past shouldn't stand in the way of our future. And also, protection of our past shouldn't stand in the way of sustainability or environmental issues either. Overprotection in any city will lead to unaffordable housing and urban sprawl. On urban sprawl, everyone, or well, not everyone, but perhaps a lot of people want that idyllic 3-4 bed home with large garden and car parking, etc. However, if that's the way Dublin continues to develop and continues to grow outwards, it will lead to a continued urban sprawl, which is a very unsustainable way to live in a city or grow a city. It will lead to greater traffic congestion, which is not great for our environment. It means that it's harder to provide services, it's harder to provide good schools, it's harder to provide a good public transport network, again not great for our environment. And it is harder to provide general services to the masses when everyone is so spread out. Higher density makes it far easier for cities and for governments to provide high-end services in terms of high public transport, good school network, and good utilities if everyone is concentrated in the one location. Therefore, building up will actually lead to better services being provided. Some of the comments on TikTok actually made a very good point. I don't speak for everyone within Dublin. I clearly know that. It was a TikTok, and as I said within the TikTok, I said we like this, we want more of this. People who know that phrase will know what I was talking about. Other people, it doesn't really matter, but I think you get the point. I wasn't talking about everyone, and I know I'm not referring to everyone. But the point was taken on. I don't speak for everyone. I then made the mistake of referring to Instagram polls that I had done in the past, where nearly 80 to 90% of the people who responded to that poll were in favour of high-rise within Dublin City. I took a lot of grief for making that point, and again, that is totally fair. It was just an Instagram poll, which means nothing. So I totally take that point on. I was totally mistaken to even make that point within the TikTok comments. But when I actually think about it, I have over 9,000 followers on Instagram. About 80% of them are Dublin based, and over 1,000 people answered that poll in regards to are they in favour of high rise or not within Dublin City. That may not seem like a lot, but when you actually compare that to the number of votes Dublin City councillors actually need to get elected, it actually is a reasonable amount. Most of the councillors only need over 1,000 votes to actually get elected to sit on the Dublin City Council, and there are some councillors who are sitting and have a seat on the council that got less than 600 first preference votes. Are they the voice of the city? You tell me. So while I did get a lot of negative comments on TikTok, I also got a lot of positive, and there was more likes for the positive comments than there was for the negative comments. And bearing all that in mind, I actually kind of feel that there is a lot of people out there in Dublin who actually do believe high-rise is the right thing for the city. From a political point of view, from councillors, from local councillors to TDs, the likelihood is they're not going to win any votes by supporting high-rise development. However, if they are seen to support high-rise development, even if it is for the greater good, the likelihood is that they could lose votes, or they could think that they are going to lose votes if they're seen to support these developments. And I think that's a shame, because a lot of these developments are great for our country. Some of them are great for Dublin, some of them are great for the housing market. And I think it is a shame that a lot of elected officials see that it's more important to actually object to these developments. And I think perhaps it's time for that to change. I, for one, right now, I'm not going to vote for a TD or a councillor ever again if they have voted against, or if they have put in objections against housing developments or good developments for local areas. Perhaps other people might want to think the same way. Perhaps it's time for this to change. Perhaps our local officials and our local TDs should be promoting development and trying to promote jobs and houses within an area and not objecting to them. National TDs should be focusing on national issues. They shouldn't be focusing on one-off development schemes in their area. They should be focusing on national issues. They're voted to the national Dáil. A local planning permission shouldn't be landing on their desk for them to object to. A comment that came up quite a lot in regards to being against high-rise development was gentrification. For those of you who don't know what gentrification is, it is when wealthier people move into an area, improve housing, and also bring in new business. It can often lead to disadvantaged people moving out of the area. A lot of people believe gentrification is a bad thing. However, studies have shown again and again that it actually is good for an area and actually improves the lives of the original people who were living in the area. It basically improves school life, kids get better education, they actually get better, schools become better, and they learn from peer to peer better as well, and the next generation do far better. Areas that have been gentrified, the original inhabitants actually far better than areas that weren't gentrified, that continue to suffer from poverty. The whole myth of gentrification being a bad thing generally is proven not to be the case, and actually the original inhabitants of that area tend to do better. The next generation do a lot better as well. Another comment that was made quite a lot was high-rise, it doesn't lead to affordable housing, and that is correct. High-rise is not aimed at affordable housing. Generally speaking, high-rise construction is far higher than low-density housing, and even far higher in terms of construction costs than medium-density housing. So once you go above 15 stories, construction costs get far more expensive because of fire, because of design, and because of actual facilities that is needed within the building once you go above 15 stories. Generally, it could be 40 to 50% more costly to build a high-rise apartment complex than it would be to build an 8-story apartment complex per unit. But this doesn't mean we should stop high-rise development solely because it's not affordable. And there's no reason why we can't have both. I don't believe high-rise should be sacrificed solely on the basis that it's not affordable, because the more supply we have, the better. The more supply we have of high luxury apartments, the less likely people who are going after those apartments or buying those apartments would be attracted to areas that might be slightly more affordable. So therefore, increasing the supply is not a bad thing, no matter what section of the market it's at. We do not have to sacrifice one element of development to help the supply of another. That's not how it works. We don't have to sacrifice office to increase residential. We don't have to sacrifice hotels to increase residential. We don't have to sacrifice high-end developments to increase residential supply either. The council have a development plan and they zone enough land for each use. Developers will build what they think there is a need for, and what they can make the most amount of profit for, and also what has the least amount of risk. And that's an important factor to consider in development. All developers will want to reduce their risk. A developer can pre-lease an office block before they start construction. They can pre-sell a build-to-rent apartment scheme to a pension fund before they start construction, but they cannot pre-sell an entire apartment complex to owner-occupiers before they start construction. Therefore, there is a huge amount of risk to it. If they have pre-lease agreements in place, or if they've pre-sold their development to a pension fund, they can attract investors for the construction stage at a very low interest rate. However, The interest rates they'll have to pay on building for owner-occupier apartments will be far higher because the risk is far greater. So therefore, by just restricting one form of development, i.e. co-living or hotels or whatever it is, it will not automatically increase the supply of affordable homes. It doesn't work like that. You haven't reduced the cost and you haven't reduced the risk by restricting another form of development. The only way to deliver more supply of affordable homes is incentivize developers, and that will bring more supply. You have to incentivize them in a number of different ways, and you can. You can look at affordable home design, you can change design regs, you can look at council contributions, perhaps if you are building affordable homes, that the council contribution is less. Also, you can look at VAT. If it is an affordable home, perhaps there's less VAT applied to the end product as well. There's lots of ways to do it that doesn't involve actually restricting other development. Stopping one form of development does not help the supply of affordable housing. It probably actually makes it less likely that affordable housing will be built. The other comments that came up a bit on TikTok was overshadowing, and it is a fair point, but I'm in New York right now, and I do not feel that I have a sense of overshadowing. Some streets are darker than others, but there's lots of open spaces and there's lots of areas to get sun when you need it. I feel that the skyscrapers within New York add to the skyline. They don't take it away, and I think city living has some drawbacks, but I also think the pros of city living far outweigh any of the negative issues such as overshadowing. When do the scales start to actually tip over? When does overshadowing become more important than housing? When does a view become more important than housing? When does a Georgian building that no one lives in become more important than providing housing? And the list goes on. What's more important, urban sprawl or high density, public transport or car dependency? There's so many different benefits that you could actually get from a more dense compact city, i.e. Public transport and people walking versus car dependency, and it's far more environmentally friendly, and it's also more sustainable long term as well. So is Dublin actually ready for high rise? Judging by the comments on TikTok, not a reliable source, but by the amount of comments that were received on the video, over 400, most of them were positive, but a good percentage of them were negative. So clearly it is something that the city is slightly divided on. There is a lot of people out there who want it, and there's a good percentage of the population who don't. And I think the people who don't want it are very adamant or taking it very personal as well. There was a lot of comments as well that were against high-rise purely because of profit, which I find a very bad state of affairs, that there are some sectors of our country that find that profit is such a bad thing. Profit is not a bad thing. It helps actually companies grow, it pays wages, it helps our economy grow, and I don't think that we should be seeing profit as a bad thing. For one, I am a strong supporter of high-rise and a more dense city, not because I'm going to make any money out of it, but I believe it will provide for a more vibrant Dublin city, and it is better for us long term. If Dublin doesn't adopt a high-rise policy in the near future, I think problems are going to get worse. There's going to be less affordability, there's going to be more traffic and car dependency, urban sprawl is going to get worse, which is not good for our environment, and we're always going to struggle to provide a good public transport system. If we actually restrict development in other areas, such as restricting hotels, high-end apartments, or even co-living, this is going to have a negative impact on the city. Restricting any form of development is not a good thing for any city. Restricting it doesn't improve affordability whatsoever, and I think it's a very negative stance some of our politicians have taken in terms of restricting some of these developments, and they're not looking at the long-term future of our cities. All they're doing is playing into populist belief or local populist belief on the media as well. They're afraid of the media, and I think they're making decisions that will ultimately have a very negative impact on our city and our long-term competitiveness as a city as well. councillors and TDs need to start thinking of the long term rather than the short term in terms of their next vote. Otherwise, we are going to have endless problems and we'll never fix these problems. I would love to know what your comments are on this topic, so positive or negative, put them in the comments below. Make sure you give the video a like as well. Also, don't forget to follow me over on Instagram. Generally good at answering my DMs. I've been a bit slow of late, but generally good at answering DMs. Also, if you're on Clubhouse, make sure you come find me. I will try run a few rooms answering some property related questions over on Clubhouse as well. So if you're on that, make sure you link in. And as always, hit, or what I should say now that I'm in America, smash that like button and smash that subscribe button. But as always, thanks for watching.